multiple counties in the affected area that are seeing winds in the 70 to 80 mile per hour and some gust up to 90. We know by radar it looks like we may potentially have in some areas 9 to 10 inches of rain. The good thing is this is a narrow storm and is very fast moving, so it's not sitting on us and dumping even more rain than that at one time. So we're thankful for that.
That's the governor of Georgia at a briefing earlier this afternoon on the threat posed by Hurricane Idalia and its impact. The Category 1 storm is barreling through that state right now after leaving behind a trail of destruction in Florida. It caused major flooding in some areas, left over 250,000 customers there without power, and grounded almost 1,000 flights. But no deaths have been reported. Idalia is expected to reach South Carolina sometime around 6 p.m. Eastern. Henry McMaster is the state's governor. He says Idalia is weakening, but the storm should not be underestimated. McMaster says officials are ready for what's coming.
Everybody's prepared, and of course, we're operating under an executive order, which I issued yesterday, that allows us to move people and equipment much more quickly. We are not going to have any evacuations. We're not going to have any closing of state agencies. I repeat again, this does not appear to be one that requires any evacuation orders or closing of state agencies, but the schools, some of the schools are closed, some of them are, and we urge them to try to get back, open back up as quickly as possible.
McMaster says utility companies have pre-deployed crews ahead of the storm's arrival. That will enable them to restore power and repair any downed lines as quickly as possible. Florida Governor Ron DeSantis gave an update last hour on the situation in his state. He says the cleanup could take months, and he's warning thieves they might get more than they bargained for if they target homes in flood zones.
I'd also just remind potential looters that people, you never know what you're walking into. People have a right to defend their property. This part of Florida, you got a lot of advocates and some proponents of the Second Amendment. And I've seen signs in different people's yards in the past after these disasters, and I would say it's probably here. You loot, we shoot. You never know what's behind that door. If you go break into somebody's house and you're trying to loot, these are people that are going to be able to defend themselves and their families. So I would not do it.
And the damage and destruction left by Idalia in Florida has been felt at the governor's own home. His wife, Casey DeSantis, tweeted this photo of a 100-year-old oak tree that fell on the Florida governor's mansion in Tallahassee. She says she and her children were home at the time, but no one was harmed. The storm cleanup is going to cover a large swath of Florida and eventually other places as well. CNN's Yvonne Rodriguez shows us the scene in Crystal River, north of Tampa.
Inside of this parking lot in Crystal River, and you can see just how much water has flooded into these areas around me. It's gotten so deep that we've had 2 fire rescue crews have to get inside of the water here with boats to rescue people who are all needing help in these surrounding neighborhoods. We've seen 2 separate couples be rescued, one with some of their belongings, including their dog, and another one as well. Even a bird cage had to be pulled out of one of these homes. We can still hear that buzzing of these boats around these neighborhoods, helping out anyone else who may be in need, who decided to hunker down and see out this storm. Officials still urging people not to come back yet. We still have an eye on a high tide around 4 or 5 in the afternoon that could raise levels here even more, possibly bringing even more damages. In Crystal River, I'm Ivan Rodriguez.
So let's get the very latest on Idalia's track. CBC science and climate specialist Darius Madavi has been following this. He joins us live from Vancouver. So Darius, where is Idalia heading next, and how will the storm's force change over the coming hours?
Well, as we heard, we're already seeing impacts from the storm in places where we're expecting that eye of the storm to pass through. So places like Georgia, South Carolina, and likely grazing North Carolina as well. So if we take a look at this satellite and radar map, we can see where the hurricane was sitting just 2 days ago and how quickly it has passed through some of these areas. So it made landfall in Florida early this morning and has since passed into Georgia, where it is bringing some really heavy rains. So if we take a look at this projected map of where the hurricane is going to go, we can see how much rain it's bringing to some of these areas and where we're expecting that hurricane track to follow in the coming days. So this is from just Monday to Friday of this week, and we're expecting some places to see as much as 400 millimeters of rain, so a foot and a third or more in some of these areas where the storm is passing either over or near. High winds as well, but as usual for a hurricane, the biggest danger is the rain and the potential flooding. So the most deadly part of a hurricane is typically the rainfall and flooding that results from that. And the second most deadly part of a hurricane typically is storm surge. So when we have these really high winds that are gusting and pushing waves much higher than they typically go, we've seen this in Florida in Big Bend. We saw some really terrible footage out of there. We're expecting it in Georgia as well, with storm surge expected to push over the waters over 3 meters higher than they usually are. And that's just being sort of exacerbated by these especially high tides just because of how close the moon is to Earth right now.
Yeah, that is so much rain. So Idalia is just the latest of several named storms in the Atlantic this year, and we appear to be on course to have more than usual. What can you tell us about that?
That's exactly right. So originally back in May, NOAA, the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration in the U.S., was forecasting a relatively normal Atlantic hurricane season. But just earlier this month, they upgraded that to a forecast for what will likely be an above-average hurricane season, mostly because of the extremely high ocean temperatures that we're seeing in the Atlantic. If you take a look at this map, you can see you can see those that heat wave in the Atlantic. Hurricanes draw their energy from the hot water below them, and because we have such high waters off the coast of Florida, the hurricane was really able to pick up steam there. And since we have such high ocean temperatures off the coast of Canada, if we see a hurricane come to our neck of the woods, so to speak, this year, it will likely be quite a powerful one as it gains that strength from that warm water, much warmer than usual.
Darius, thank you. That is CBC Science and Climate Specialist Darius Mahdavi in Vancouver.